Welcome to the Worship Probs podcast, where we aim to entertain, encourage, and equip worship and tech leaders all around the world. Look, we all know that serving in worship and production is great, but the problems, those are real. Thanks for joining us as we dive into today's episode with our host, Brian Tabor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 322 of the Worship Probs podcast. Man, I'm so glad you're tuning in today. 3 E's. We're going to do that every single week. Entertain, encourage, and equip. And I want to talk a little bit about those. We started as a meme page for worship leaders and production leaders and worship teams. And so we just wanted to make you laugh and hopefully realize in the laughing that you're not in this alone, man. We're all fighting the good fight out here as we work to serve the local church. So that's the entertain. Encourage. We want to encourage you in your ministry. We want you to listen to these podcasts or watch a video online or look at a meme, and we just wanted to encourage you and to kind of keep you going, man, as you work to serve the Lord and to serve your local congregations and your teams. And then equip. We want to help to equip you for ministry. You know, our account is called Worship Probs. So that kind of necessitates, like, if you've got a problem, a challenge, an issue, think of us. We've got an amazing collection of leaders and that I am just honored to serve alongside. And we don't have every answer, but we definitely have a few answers of our own. And if we can't find the answer, or if we don't have the answer, we're going to help you find it. And so entertain, encourage, and equip. That's the reason. Those are the reasons for the 3 E's. And so we're so glad you're listening today. Do me a favor. I ask you every week, jump over to Apple Podcasts, even if you listen on Pod Stock or Pod Burger, whatever, wherever you listen, go to Apple. It's the hub that drives it all. Apple Podcast, search for Worship Probs and leave us a 5-star rating and a really nice review. Be really grateful for that. It helps get the message of the podcast out to more people because we believe this adds value, and that's why we're doing it. So if you would do that, 5 stars and a really nice review, I would be really, really grateful. Well, you got me solo today, so I apologize in advance for what may happen here without any built-in accountability for me. But you got me solo. It's still going to be a great episode. As always, we're going to share some resources with you, some encouragement, and as always, I have a Rip Snorton group of. Well, I can't believe I just said Rip Snorton, but I do have a really good group of prayer concerns for you today. And then I'm going to share a conversation I had with Kelsey McGinnis. Kelsey is the Worship Correspondent for Christianity Today, among many, many other things. And we are going to have a blast in this conversation with her. So as we get started, let me tell you about our absolutely incredible friends at Planning Center. This episode of the Worship Probs podcast is brought to you by Planning Center, an all-in-one software that can help you organize every facet of your ministry, connect with your people, and help your people stay connected to each other. Among the many ways Planning Center can help you do that is through task management. In Planning Center, you can create detailed tasks, organize to-do lists, and even collaborate on those tasks with other team members in real time. Do you have recurring events and projects with long to-do lists? Make a task list template to save time. Have regular tasks you need help keeping up with? Set your tasks to automatically repeat at an interval of your choosing. And the best part is that you can create tasks from absolutely anywhere in Planning Center using the toolbar. You'll find your Tasks tab in Planning Center Home, the place you see all the important updates happening across your account. To learn more and get started today, visit planningcenter.com or click the link in our bio. Well, I'll tell you what, we have just finished 3 back-to-back weeks travel, and that didn't happen very often. We've had an absolute blast being with you all out there on the road. That started at the Refuel Conference up in Mishawaka, Indiana. Guys, I'm telling you, this is it's just a 1-day conference, and it's the kind of conference you can afford to bring your teams to with you if you're a leader in worship or production. So look out for that next year. Hopefully we'll be invited back. But Refuel was outstanding. And then we went, for the first time, we went to the NAM show. And a more prepared host would have been able to tell you what NAM stands for, but it's like North American something. It deals with music, it deals with audio production. And it was unbelievable. Like I've been to lots of conferences. I've been to some smaller trade shows. This is like the grandfather of every trade show. If you'll go into a room that's like the size of a Target, and all they have in there are acoustic guitar vendors. And then you'll go in another room that same size, and it's nothing but drums. Another room that size, it's electric guitars and pro audio and so on and so on. And it's just it's really unbelievable. If you're in the area or you have a chance to go, I would highly encourage you to check out NAM. We were there through our partnership with Allen and Heath. Man, they're incredible partners, and they're doing some really cool stuff. If you check out our socials, you'll see some recent posts about a brand new product from them called the SQ Rack, which is a rack mountable version of their SQ console, virtual faders, everything, expandable waves, Dante, Dante always be messing around in there. Well, it's all of that and more. And so hopefully you can take a look at that. But Allen and Heath's a great partner of ours. And then we finished up at Behold, which is a conference in New Jersey, spearheaded by the New Jersey State Assembly of God Association. It just a great group of people. And Kim and I got to stay over and help lead worship at Fountain of Life with our friends David and Karen Henry. You probably will remember Fountain of Life is the church that completely burned to the ground. This was almost 2 years ago now, and our friends American Musical Supply, David lost all of his personal gear in the fire, and so we were able to tap into some partnerships with like American Musical Supply, and Kim and I through Tabor Ministries were able to do some things and help to replace some, not all, but some of the gear that they lost. And so what a great opportunity to just be back at Fountain of Life under different circumstances. And we love the Henrys, and Behold, I'm sure, is a conference that will keep going. So be on the lookout for that as well. Well, we've got some new things coming in 2025. You can always count on this, the Worship Probs podcast. You can count on Worship Karaoke coming at you. And then we've got some new things coming in 2025. We've got our e-newsletter that we'll be launching here soon. So make sure you sign up for that. You can find that on our website, worshipleaderprobs.com. Just click on the Let's Connect tab and sign up there. That's exclusive stuff. It's not going to be just, hey, did you see this meme on Instagram? It's going to be totally different. And so even if you follow us on Instagram, you're going to want to be a part of the e-news list. We're going to be launching some webinars here in 2025, so stay tuned for that. New podcast or two coming in 2025. So keep an eye on that. You're going to want to follow us on all the socials just to make sure you stay up to date and current and informed on all the stuff that we've got going on. It's going to be a big year, as well as our podcast is now going to YouTube. So full video versions of the podcast, unless it's a live one, we don't have the technology yet to have a crew with us to tape all of those live experiences. But maybe someday, make that a little matter of prayer. So maybe someday that'll happen. But you can subscribe to our YouTube, find a link in our bio, and you can now watch full video episodes of the Worship Probs podcast over on the tubes. And so we hope you will go over there, man. Follow, subscribe, whatever the button says. Just click it. It'll be right there. It'll be right there for you. Well, one of the things that we've done since the very beginning, and this is episode 322, but since the very beginning, we have done something that we call Prayer Concerns. Prayer Concerns is proudly sponsored by 5 Words Media, the amazing people that bring you free church AV. 5 Words Media is also the official AVL integrator of Worship Props. If you're a worship pastor or a tech director, you know how crucial audio, video, and lighting are for your weekly gatherings. Speakers popping, dead zones, lighting, and live streaming issues can quickly make your gathering both distracting and frustrating. An excellent worship gathering is one where your AVL systems are all working together seamlessly to help create a powerful worship experience. The team at 5 Words Media gets it. They're ministry experts who understand the details of your local church's needs and the pivotal role that volunteers play. Their passion? To deliver high-quality, volunteer-friendly solutions that align with your budget and priorities. How does it work? Well, the 5 Words proven process is straightforward. It starts with a needs assessment done by one of their skilled technicians, followed by a custom solution design tailored to your budget. Then, they handle the installation, testing, and even volunteer training. Ready to transform frustration into empowerment? Just click the link in our bio, find 5 Words Media, and kickstart your journey today. Elevate your gatherings with precision and excellence. Schedule a call with 5 Words Media now. Now, if you're new to the podcast, maybe you've been to one of these live events, and we were able to record a live podcast at both Refuel and at the Behold conference. And so we always just have such a blast with those, just to get people in the room. We had this experience with a guy at Refuel. You've seen his picture, I'm sure. It was on the podcast episode graphic of the live one from Refuel. This guy came up and asked a question, pulled out a Chick-fil-A sandwich and started eating it right there while we were answering. It was wild. And so we love just doing podcasts with you in the room. We take your questions, and we do prayer concerns live as well. And so what's a prayer concern? Well, most churches have like a connection card or a communication card or whatever you call it at your place, like that card in the seat back pocket. Or it's a live stream, chat, YouTube, whatever. And a lot of times you'll ask people, how can we pray for you? Sometimes they use it for actual prayer requests. But then there are those times where they use it to maybe let you know they weren't all that crazy about something that happened in your service. And so those are the things that people send in to us, the kind of the roasts. And I know you've got your own if you've been in ministry for even 5 minutes. So I would love it if you would send yours to us. You'll always remain anonymous. We'll never share your name or your church's name. Those will all be on the DL, as the kids are saying. They're probably not saying that anymore, but they used to say it on the DL. And so we'll never share your name or your church's name, but we do share these on the podcast. This would fall under that first E, entertain. And we just want to make you laugh, just remind you that you are not alone. And so send them in to us. You can DM those to us on the socials. Go to the website, worshipleaderprobs.com, and click on the prayer concerns tab while you're there and submit yours. So let's dive right in. Prayer concern number 1. One weekend, we introduced a new song, and someone came up to one of our team members after church and said, "Awesome song. Once you guys really get it down, it'll be so powerful." Once you get it down. That's, I have a table for one, backhanded comments. Oh, my Lord. Okay, number 2, prayer concern number 2. I wore a long sleeve, ankle length black dress with tights one Sunday. Okay, so we've got, it's long sleeve. That's right. That's good. Ankle length. That's pretty long. If you're going to wear a dress, that's pretty long. That's nice. She the word on Sunday, and an older member of the congregation told me it was the only Sunday that she's ever seen me dress appropriately. And I have been leading worship there for 12 years. That seems like a pretty broad brush, right? Like, let's see, this is the only time. This is the only time I've ever seen you dress appropriately. Okay, moving right along. Prayer concern number 3. This was said. This was said by. This must have been like a church business meeting. Okay, so this was said into a mic in front of the entire congregation, and it says, "And where is Andre? The Holy Spirit didn't fall because you were using multi-tracks during service, and he doesn't like that." Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't think it works that way. Certainly I have used multi-tracks in services, and definitely we met with the Lord and the Holy Spirit moved and all that good stuff. So I'm not sure that's a qualifier for the Holy Spirit working, but that's just my 2 cents. Okay, number 4, prayer concern number 4. Before going on the platform, I was told I needed a haircut because I look like a Yeti. A lot of personal appearance comments. Probably not the biggest fan of that, within reason. Unless, or maybe that's a spot for the leader to handle, whatever. Those are my thoughts. Those are just my thoughts. Okay, here's the last one, the bottom of the pudding cup, prayer concern number 5. And we've gotten this one a couple times, and it says one of the vocalists on our worship team is expecting a child. Someone in the church came up to me one day to tell me that they were so glad that they could finally hear her sing, and it must be the power of the child in her that is making her sing louder. It must be the child that's doing that to, help her sing louder. So people are unhinged, man, and they have been given a license to share. So send your prayer concerns in to us. Again, you can DM these to us on the socials, or you can jump over to the website, worshipleaderprobs.com. There's a link in our bio, and it'll show you a bunch of links. Just scroll down and you'll find the prayer concerns link and send yours there. Again, you'll always be anonymous. Never share your name or your church's name. And by the way, got some new merch. I'm wearing one of our new hats. We're doing some understated logo stuff. Maybe this is stuff you could lead worship in. If you're a hat church, if you're not a hat church, you would not want to wear this. But we've got hoodies and shirts and all kinds of stuff out there. So while you're submitting your prayer concerns, hit that merch tab, and you might find something to your liking. Well, I got to have a conversation recently with a new friend named Kelsey McGinnis. And as I told you earlier, Kelsey is the worship correspondent for Christianity Today. So she writes on all things worship and music, and really is a fascinating follow on the socials. So I hope you'll follow her. She holds a PhD, so I should say Dr. Kelsey McGinnis. She holds a PhD in musicology and teaches music and theology at Grandview University in Des Moines, Iowa. She's a co-author of the book, The Myth of Good Christian Parenting, and she writes broadly on Christian music and the intersection of American Christianity and popular culture. She lives in central Iowa with her husband and 3 children. And I know you're just going to love her. And I do hope that you go follow Dr. Kelsey on the socials. So let's jump into my conversation with Dr. Kelsey McGinnis. Since 1988, New Life Ministries has offered compassionate and empowering solutions to those who find themselves in life's difficult places and who are missing what God desires for their lives. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but aren't always equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction, pornography, infidelity, anxiety, anger, fear, depression, and hurts from the past. Do you ever find yourself feeling anxious, fearful, Angry or even depressed in your everyday life or ministry? Or as a leader in your ministry, do you want to be better equipped to walk with those around you who are struggling? We're partnering with New Life Ministries to provide resources, help, and support for you in any season you face, so you are best equipped to serve and lead your ministry. Look for more info to come and click the link in our bio to discover more ways that New Life Ministries can help. Well, the Worship Probs podcast is thrilled to have Kelsey McGinnis with us today. Kelsey, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Man, we're so glad you're here. So you are the worship correspondent at Christianity Today, and I have been looking forward to this conversation for a really, really long time. So how are things? How was your summer? You're getting into fall. You've got littles, right?
I do have littles. This is the first year that all three littles have something school-wise, preschool or first grade or something like that. So it's kind of a new phase for us, but it's been really fun. But we started off the school year with some travel. I was in Nashville last week, and that was the second week of class. So I of feel like we're starting again this week, trying to find our rhythm here. A week of travel will kind of mess that up for you. So, but it's been great. It still feels like summer here in Iowa, as I'm sure it does for you. It's like 85 here today, I think. But
we've had a couple of mornings that it dipped down into like the low 40s already, which has been kind of jarring. You know,
nice.
My wife always says, first I walk my dog and then I walk my husband in the morning. And so this is that time of year where she knows the look, and she's like, it's not that cold. Just put a jacket on. You're going to survive it.
What are you going to do when it dips below 20? You live in the Midwest.
I know. I'm going to do something else. I don't know. I got to find something else. Well, okay, Kelsey, you're a friend of the podcast and of the meme account and all that stuff. So welcome to the hot seat. We like to have a little fun on here to get started. So over like 60 seconds, we're going to have 5 like rapid fire questions, and just quick hits, and they're very, very easy. So number 1 on the hot seat, burger or salad?
Salad, I suppose, usually.
Yeah.
Is that a very girly answer? I feel like it is.
That's the healthy answer, probably, like
nothing against burgers. I feel like a burger is like one thing. A salad can be like a number of things, right?
Sure.
Like I can still have like fried chicken on the salad.
Oh, there you go.
A salad.
There you go. I'm in with that. Okay, number 2, what is the last song you played on your phone?
Something off of the Spidey and His Amazing Friends soundtrack. People always ask me, "Oh, you must have such great like music that you listen to throughout the day. That's your job." Like, no, it's all Spidey and His Amazing Friends right now.
That's fantastic.
Or the Wreck-It Ralph soundtrack.
That's fantastic. Okay, number 3, if you had to pick a superpower, what would you choose?
Flying. Easy.
Oh, yeah. I think me too. Me too. Number 4, what's a little known fact about you that people would find hard to believe?
Oh, that's a very good question. A little known fact.
So mine is, I was conceived in the Holy Land. My parents were in their mid-40s, and they went on a trip to the Holy Land with their church. And when they came back, they found out they were expecting me. And so I tell my wife, you cannot ever take issue with anything I say. Because that's my little known fact.
It's a very personal little known fact. Let me see if
it's very personal.
trying to think of what little known fact. When I come from a relatively political Iowa family.
Oh, sure.
It's like caucus land here, And when I was in middle school, I led the Pledge of Allegiance at a George W. Bush rally as like a 12-year-old. And there are all kinds of weird pictures of me doing things like that here with our family and marching in parades.
Nice.
And
I'm going to have to Google that.
Like
I'm going to have to do some Googlage after we get off here. That's nice. Okay, number 5. Now, you do the music at Christianity Day, and then you also do some things on parenting, right?
Yes.
And so I see you posting a lot about books. So when it comes to books, are you digital or are you paper? Like you want to hold it?
Paper.
Yeah,
paper
Kim
copy.
is too. She's like, I'm like, Kim, you have 8,000 books. We could put these all on your iPad. Brian, I gotta touch it. I want to take notes. Yeah. So
Same,
she's a paper
absolutely.
girl.
I tried the Kindle thing for a while, and it was just not for me. So I don't know. Maybe other people have better advice about how to become a e-reader person, but I've not yet.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you on today. And I'm wondering if you can tell us and our listeners a little bit about your story. Like, how did you go from leading the Pledge of Allegiance at a George W. Bush rally to now writing for Christianity Today?
Oh man. So I mean, the place I'd probably start that story is I worked at a Christian bookstore when I was in high school here in Des Moines. There was a locally owned or family owned Christian bookstore. And they had a music section in the back, of course. And so I started working at the bookstore. And shortly after I started working there, I started working in the music section. And I was like the person in the back of the store who would like take calls from people who, I heard this song on the radio, and the chorus is about
It has
Jesus.
hallelujah in it. What is it?
Yeah. And so I was the person in the back of the store taking those calls and trying to help them find things. But I'd also grown up in a household of church musicians. My grandmother is a church musician, my mother, my father, all of them. And so, church music was just part of our family identity. And so I think starting to work at this Christian bookstore, I started to encounter things like publications like Relevant Magazine or Christianity Today or Hard Music Magazine. And I loved writing, I loved reading, and I started thinking to myself, I wonder what the path is from here to like writing for something like that. But then that very much fell by the wayside for a long time. I went to school, started as a music major, ended up being a creative writing major. And then started going to grad school as a musicologist to study music history because it became very apparent to me quickly that I did not want to be a performer. When you go to college as a music major, unless you're at a Christian college, which I wasn't, there's no real path besides like education or performance. So, I just sort of kept doing the next thing and the next thing. And then ended up in grad school for music history. Loved that, finished that. I did research on music and propaganda in World War II. Then graduated with 2 young kids, and we moved for my husband's job. And in my brain, I was not expecting to be particularly productive for a while with really young kids. But when the pandemic hit, I found myself thinking a lot about congregational singing and what we lose when we can't sing together.
Oh, wow. Absolutely.
During those, the really high pandemic months when no one could be in church together, I just kind of sat down one day and thought, I want to write something about what it is about singing together, what it is about being in the same place and being able to make music together that just is not replicable in an online space. And what does that mean to lose that? Why does that mean so much to us? And so I pitched that to Christianity Today just as like a one-off thing, not knowing anybody there. And they really liked it. And so that was the first piece I ever wrote for them as a freelancer. And then things just kind of snowballed from there. They didn't have anyone writing about music at the time. And so I just kind of kept on either pitching new things or talking with them about other ideas they had. And it has kind of become what I do now, which is a pretty regular writing schedule. I write a couple articles a month, do a little bit of editing. And that has been so fun and so unexpected. And I have learned so much in the past couple of years. I feel just really lucky to be getting to do it and get to talk to so many people who are in ministry who have just a wealth of knowledge and insight. And getting to interact with those people is really, really a privilege.
Well, you're great at it. And
thanks.
I am not just saying this, you are an excellent follow for those of us who are listening. I'll give you her details here in a minute, but you're an excellent follow, and it's very thought-provoking stuff. And I love the questions you pose, and I love digging into the replies and seeing what other people are thinking about and chewing on. And so you're great at it. And so I'm glad you're doing it. It reminds me of the A Few Good Men. We want you on that wall. We need you on that wall. So there's like 1,000 things we could talk about. And that just means we're going to have to do this again sometime soon. So one of the things that we talk about a lot on the podcast is preparation. And, of course, we want to be prepared spiritually first and foremost, but as worship leaders who serve in a creative field and in music, we want to be prepared practically and musically. And one of the things that you and I have been kicking back and forth for a few weeks is, so as technology is advancing its way into worship, how are you seeing that impact the church, in particular, like church musicians?
Yeah, I mean, so many ways, right? I think, there are a couple I can zoom in on as things I've been thinking about recently. I recently wrote about drummers, how this is affecting drummers in particular. The ways that just sort of the widespread use of click track in churches, in bigger churches, really changes the way that a service can be orchestrated and can flow. It also changes the job of a drummer quite a bit. For that piece, I talked to a bunch of different drummers, and they described the ways that they feel like the technology has changed their job for better and for worse. Some of them really like the ways that they aren't, they don't have to be a glorified metronome anymore, right? Like it's not, they don't have to click off. It's not so much that they're just there to keep tempo. They get to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more expressive. So that's all good. But then there are ways that they, several of them would say they miss the freedom of not having one. Once you start using a piece of technology as a habit, you start to become more and more tied to it. If you have musicians who are trained with it, it's harder to do without it. So there are things like that where, as these new tools are adopted, I think the use of stems or multi-tracks underneath is another good example. In some ways, they make things so much easier, and they remove opportunity for little mix-ups and mess-ups, which is a really desirable thing for a lot of churches, right? Because I think so many people perceive mistakes as distractions from worship. And there's this idea that we need to minimize distraction by making everything seamless and smooth. And this technology makes that a lot easier. But what do we lose when it's so seamless and smooth that you don't have the possibility of a mix-up? And my thinking on this has evolved a lot. There's a time I would have said yes, that absolutely removes distraction and can kind of cover over if you have a musician who's not as confident or something like that. But at the same time, people aren't computers, right? People aren't machines. And when what you're hearing from the stage might as well have been made by a machine, or what's being done by the machines is more audible or visible than what the musicians themselves are doing, I do think we run the risk of kind of turning people into machines, into robots. And I do think that has some spiritual implications, not just for how the service goes, but for how we relate to each other in a church, in a local church, how we perceive the people who are leading, how we perceive their gifts. I think there are all kinds of ways that is just really complicated. And I don't think it needs to be an either or, we need to figure out which is better with or without, but it's this constant negotiation we have to do. At what point is this becoming dehumanizing? At what point is this becoming distracting? And I think the answers for those questions are just so dependent on a local church using them with discernment. And that makes it really hard to have any kind of generalizable rule about how they should be used.
People, when they ask me what I do and I tell them I run a meme page for a living, they always, you must laugh all day long. You know what? We have some laughs and they're great. And we love to laugh because it kind of reminds us, okay, we're all in this, we're all in this together. We're not alone in our challenges, our struggles, or our props, whatever. But there is not a more controversial meme that we make in any variety other than something about tracks. Or if it's a video where the tracks failed, or the guide is in the house, 1, 2, 3, and people, we posted one last week, and people just lose all sense of themselves when they get in the comments, and there's something involving tracks. And so my my typical like garden variety response is kind of what you said. I think every church needs to wrestle with this for themselves. You know, you've got to wrestle with it. You need to, first of all, you should wrestle with everything you're doing in your services. You should be intentional about why you're doing this, why you're not doing that, you know, all of that good stuff. But I think you know, this is one for sure. And I happen to think one of the areas that the technology is really affecting is our kind of like basic musicianship. You know, the click does, it can take away the need to, you know, some basic music theory stuff. You know, the click can kind of take that away from you. So are you seeing that as well as you're kind of taking a look at this technology issue?
Yeah, I think the question of what kind of training is necessary is a really big one right now. And I, you know, I teach at a university, so I am in favor of music education.
Absolutely.
And I think it is only beneficial. I sympathize with people who would say mentorship is just as powerful, or, you know, I know many church musicians who've come up just by being trained in the church, by learning to play guitar because the youth group sponsor taught them 4 chords, and they just kind of kept on going with it and became really wonderful musicians. So I don't begrudge anyone that path. And I don't think that a music, like a Bachelor of Music degree is necessary to be you know, a church musician or a worship leader. But I do think that things like being able to read a lead sheet, read the notes on a lead sheet, be able to understand how keys work. I mean, one of the most common sort of gripes I hear is when people lead with someone who doesn't understand transposition and how asking a keyboard player to change keys from C to B major is like not a small thing, unless you have someone who is just a rock star keyboard player who can just switch to 5 sharps, you know? So I think some of those things, I also think there are some, and this just depends on the church, right? But if you're a worship leader who just doesn't know anything about sight reading or choral music, for example, that limits the kinds of things that you can let people do musically in your church. It limits the kinds of things that you could maybe do with a children's choir or with an Easter choir. There are reasons to have those skills that don't just have to do with like you showing your chops as a musician, but also being able to invite more people in your congregation to participate in different ways. I was at the Sing conference that the Gettys do last week in Nashville, and I talked to a group of women all in their 60s and early 70s, and they were there, all of them choir members, 2 of them former choir directors, and they were really lamenting the decline of church choir and feeling like that as a community was starting to go away, and as an opportunity for them to participate in the music of their church was starting to disappear till, you know, just Christmas and Easter or something. And some of that's just style, right? Like some of that's just choir kind of went out of vogue, but some of it is also the training of the people in charge. If you are very uncomfortable working with a choir, working with sheet music, teaching parts, plunking them out on a piano, you're not going to want to do that. And I don't blame you. So there are all kinds of reasons why I think some basic, you know, theory training, some basic music education, just like some basic tech training. I don't think that every worship leader has to be a total gearhead, you know, but understanding how to use these tools in a way that makes it so that more people can be a part of it, I think is really important.
Man, you make such a great point. And is some of this stuff going away because we aren't training leaders to work in that discipline? That's a really, really great point, and this often comes up with me when I talk to younger leaders about chord charts.
Mm.
I think chord charts can have a place, but I don't think that's where you should start. I think that's where you can end up after you understand what makes the chord chart work. I was having this conversation with an acoustic guitar player I gave him a lead sheet that had a lead line on it, and it had the lyrics and it had the chords written above it. I can't read this. And I was like, talk to me about that. And he goes, I only read chord charts. I was like, do you know that has all the same information on it? You just probably haven't ever seen one before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you just need to know, man, if you're going to play with me, I sort of refuse to give people chord charts because it gives you 9% of the information that you need to play. You know what I mean? And there are community colleges or college, YouTube, there's all kinds of places where you can go and find like some basic music theory. And you're right, it gives you access to so many other ways to lead your team and ways to lead your people. I mean, I jokingly in our text messages, I was like, this is a tombstone moment for me. Like, here lies Mr. Probs, learn music theory. Like that is just a passion for me.
Are you primarily a keyboard player? Is that your first instrument with piano?
I am. Trumpet was actually my first instrument, but there's not a lot of call for that as a worship leader. And so I played keys and trumpet and also I found, this is so stupid, but when I was a younger guy, girls liked piano players way more than they like trumpet players. So because you could play, whatever love songs. So, yeah. I mean, I get that. But like, I would say the same thing to singers who didn't play an instrument. I think playing an instrument forces you a little more to dig into some theory. And like, when I think back to trumpet, like my wife will still catch me when I'm leading a song. I have trumpet fingerings going on in my right because, the study of the trumpet was almost like 85% about intervals and that affects ear training and all that stuff. And so even for singers, I would say, man, you got to get on YouTube and figure out how to play scales and figure out what's a fourth sound like, what's a sixth sound like, what's a fifth, you know what I mean? Like that's going to just serve you. So we could talk about this for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Well, and I think the kind of being able to navigate actual sheet music, even if you're not reading all the notes. One thing that drives me nuts as a vocalist is looking back at like the cue slides. We have those at our church where there's like, you have the chord chart up there with the line of lyrics with the chords written above them, but you have no rhythm notated there. You have no indication of meter. And so certain things like, where is the bar line? Right. Where in the measure does this chord actually happen? There is absolutely something to be said for being able to just do that by feel, right? And I think a lot of church musicians are so used to being able to just listen to the recording and do what they hear. Yeah. But when you're in rehearsal and there's 8-9 people on the stage who all need to hit that change at the same time, and not everyone listened to the same recording or not everybody heard the same thing, that gets really complicated really quickly. And there are other ways to get around that, but one way is by having the lead sheet in front of you that shows you where in the measure that happens. And I think that can be a valuable thing that makes rehearsals go a lot more smoothly.
Absolutely.
And I also just think having those musical tools makes it easier to do some arranging. I think like arranging is going to be a skill that we look back on and say, we maybe should have cultivated that a little bit more. People like to do mashups of of different songs right now that kind of adding a chorus here, putting these two songs together. But increasingly that is done for us in multi-tracks. Like you can buy the set for this particular medley that so-and-so did. Whereas if you, as a local leader, are able to do that and create that on the fly based on the musicians you have, or like kind of write out like a basic, maybe you have a solo violin player, you could like write out a little like melody line for them to play in the instrumental or leading, just all of those things that are totally unnecessary. Like it's not necessary, but if you have, a high schooler who's learning violin who wants to be involved, that's a great way to involve them without making them take the chord chart to their violin teacher and them writing it together, which I've also seen that happen.
Right. Man, what a great conversation. And I guess probably what we're saying is it's okay as a tool, but man, if you get 1000% reliant on it, that can lead you into a tough spot, because what if it goes away? Like what if the computer fails or reboots during the set? What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, so, man, I love that. So, okay. You serve on the team at your church. I see you posting a lot about this happened at rehearsal, or we're wrestling with this. And so, I love how you use social media with that. So what do you love about serving in worship in the local church?
It's a good question. I mean, first of all, I love music. I love making music. I love singing. I love playing. I am not the best vocalist. I am certainly not the best pianist. I'm not like a virtuoso, but I love the practice of making music with other people, singing with other people. That's been a really important part of my life since childhood, in the church, singing in kids' choirs, singing with the congregation. It's just something that I love. And so that's something that comes to mind. The other thing is that I think I think you learn a lot about people by making music with them.
Absolutely.
Like it's a very humanizing and vulnerable thing in some ways. Making mistakes in front of people, having to navigate relationships that way, being seen by people in the church and seeing them. I think it's highly relational. And I think that it's making music together as the local church is relational, but I really enjoy the community of being on a team of people making music together. I think it keeps me humble in a lot of ways, just sort of reminds me of my own fallibility and just absolute mediocrity in some areas, which is always good, and also encountering the creativity and expressivity of other people is so powerful too. I think seeing other people make music, sing, play, create, is just this like greenhouse for empathy if you do it right. And I think I think making music together is one of the few spaces where you can really see that happening in real time.
Man, that's a beautiful description of it. I love that. I love that. So, okay, we started as a meme page for worship leaders. And so we always like to ask this question. Have you ever maybe been leading at church or serving on the team or whatever, and just things went off the rails, like things did not go as planned? Has that ever happened?
Yeah. So I have a favorite story about this, and it's maybe cheating a little bit because this was actually at a wedding where I was doing music, but we were doing congregational music. So I'm hoping this counts. But
absolutely.
I was playing piano and singing at a wedding. My husband was also leading with me, and it was a wedding of a friend, and we also knew the officiant really well. And so it's this big, beautiful wedding in this old theater, and the ceremony is starting. We're playing an instrumental as the grandparents are about to be seated. And so people start walking in, and my friend, the officiant, turns to me. I'm sitting there playing, just sort of vamping. And he looks at me, he says, "I forgot communion." And we look over at this table that's there where there's supposed to be, juice and some kind of bread or something. He had been tasked with getting those things for the service because he is the officiant. And I'm kind of looking at him like, well, I can't help you there. I'm so sorry. And we're sort of realizing, okay, like, what are we going to do? Is he going to have them like pantomime or what? But so I'm just kind of playing. My husband is playing. We're both watching this happen. And the officiant kind of calmly turns around and we see him walk down, like trying to make this seem like it's all part of the thing, right? Like as the grandparents are coming in and being seated. And then we see him kind of beeline over to another one of our friends who has young kids. And he leans over and like whispers in her ear, and she starts rifling through her purse and pulls out, we see like she pulls out like a bottle of water and something else. We can't see what it is. And he calmly walks back to the front and he has this bottle of water and one of those wild berry frosted Pop-Tarts, like one of the bright blue and purple ones. And so he walks up and he's kind of like hiding it in his like lapel a little bit so no one can see what he's doing. And he, fills up the cup with the water and he kind of breaks apart this Pop-Tart trying to like hide the purple frosting and puts it down. And I'm sitting there just trying to hold it together, playing this instrumental. And my husband is kind of noodling on the guitar and we're just dying inside and knowing that now we have to sit through this whole service, lead worship, play music, and we're going to play this communion piece. And as we do, we know that they're going to come up. And so sure enough, communion happens. We sort of see the officiant like whisper something to the bride and the groom as this is starting. And they take communion. There's consecrated Pop-Tart, apparently. I don't know. But that was maybe the hardest I've ever had to work to like keep it together during
incredible.
any musical performance ever. But it was a beautiful wedding. The bride and groom acted like nothing happened. I have no idea if anybody else in the congregation even knew that it happened. So that is one of my absolute favorite stories of like just like panic. And I think I like that story because I was less panicked than the officiant. I think he felt really bad, but I sort of got to watch it all unfold from up there.
Oh, that's incredible. That is incredible.
Oh,
the
man.
Consecrated Pop-Tart.
The consecrated Pop-Tart.
Oh man!
Yes.
Well, people who listen to the podcast know how I feel about Pop-Tarts, and it is a deep love. It's a deep devotion on my.
What's your favorite
incredible.
Pop-Tart? I have to know.
Frosted blueberry. I've not gotten exotic. So I used to be stuck on the brown sugar cinnamon,
Same,
but with
so
no
good.
icing.
Oh,
I know that's everyone's reaction. And Jen makes fun of me because I talk about it lets you enjoy the pastry part of it, and that I refer to Pop-Tarts as pastry, but you can't find those now. And so I'm either frosted strawberry or frosted blueberry. And right now there are many boxes of frosted blueberry in the house. So what about you? Do you?
Nice. It's the cinnamon brown sugar frosted, however, those are good. It's been a while. I with young kids in the house, I feel like if I bought a box of those, they'd be gone instantly. So they'll discover them eventually. But
that's fantastic. Well, if you're listening, we're going to get to the big room question here in just a second, but make sure you go follow Kelsey K. McGinnis on the socials. We will tag her in the description on this episode, and you're going to want to follow her because she does a masterful job of walking through lots of the issues that we're talking about and so much more. So, so we end every conversation that we have with the same question. We call it the big room question. If we were to gather all the worship leaders and all their volunteers and all the production leaders and all their volunteers, and we gathered them all together in one big room and we gave you a microphone, what would you want to say to them about what we do in the local church?
Yeah, I think I would say, there are a lot of filters that you kind of put your decision-making through, right? There are a lot of filters that you use to make decisions about everything from song selection to lighting, to instrumentation. But I think right now, the thing I would say is to let your primary filter be the people in your congregation, to let the humans that in your church be the primary drivers of those decisions and the people in mind when you make them. One thing that I feel like I'm becoming more and more aware of is just how social media driven a lot of the aesthetics of sort of the culture around worship music have become. There is a lot of aspirational content out there, right? Like, I think a lot of the most popular producers of worship music are doing incredible work. They're writing songs that are absolutely serving the church. I do not hate the sort of big box music production groups at all, but I do think that letting the decisions that those people make about their music and their performances and the aesthetics of those performances, letting those things help you make decisions, I think is really misguided. And I think if that becomes a bigger filter than the experiences, preferences, needs of your congregation, I think it's really easy for those things to become out of balance. I think we've been in this movement for the past 30 years towards seeker-friendly, trend-forward decision-making, wanting to be in step with where things are going. I think that can be totally fine. But increasingly, I have a sense that older people in congregations are getting left behind and left out as those decisions are being made. That we have 60-plus-year-old people in congregations who do not get to sing the songs of their faith journey anymore because we don't want to do them. I think that's a huge loss. I was talking to someone recently who's a researcher who talks a lot about heart songs, about how important those are, and how there's just no substitute for that. And for many of us, our heart songs are kind of determined in our 20s at these really hyper developmental times in our faith and our personal walk. And for me to think about never singing the songs that I love now or even 10 years ago, the thought of being 50, 60, God willing, but never singing those songs is kind of a sad thought to me. So I think there are a lot of ways that leaders can center the particular people in their church. And that will, I think, bear really good fruit in local congregations. There are lots of other things I could say, but that's the one that I find myself thinking a lot about right now.
Man, that's so good, Kelsey. I love and remembering those 60s and 70-year-olds, we're standing on their shoulders,
Absolutely.
Because of the sacrificial giving and service of their lives. There's a building there. There's a congregation there. We're standing on their shoulders, and so to remember, that's huge, man. What a great answer. Gosh. Well, okay, we're going to do this again sometime soon because that'll be number one of the 1,000 things that we need to talk about.
I would love that.
As I said earlier, you got to go follow Kelsey K. McGinnis. McGinnis. Follow her on the socials. Great writer. She's given great content to the music and worship community, and you'd be a great follow. You'll be better for it. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everything you do. So appreciate your work.
She's good people, man. She's just good people. And really is a fascinating follow on the socials. She writes on all kinds of stuff that is applicable to those of us who serve in worship and production. And if you're involved in song selection at your church, a lot of great writing on that. And so I do hope you'll follow her. It's at Kelsey K. McGinnis, and we'll tag her in the description here. And I hope you will jump over and give Dr. K a follow because she's amazing. Well, guys, I really appreciate you hanging out with me for a few minutes today for episode 322 of the Worship Probs podcast. And I want to encourage you, remember to hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. That way, every Tuesday morning, we'll be waiting for you. Just like if you're a coffee person, I'm not, but if you're a coffee, like a fresh hot cup of Joe, man, when you wake up, or like a nice warm blanket, maybe an omelet, whatever does it for you, that's what we are. That's what we'll be for you every Tuesday morning. So And again, if you would jump over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating and a really nice review. It just helps us to spread the word about the podcast. And we're grateful that you follow us on the socials. And if you're not following us on the socials, you need to. We're having a blast on all of our accounts. We're at Worship Probs on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and YouTube. So make sure you go click follow or subscribe on all of those. Over on the TikTok, which is back, by the way, after the 12 hours ban, it's back for now. And we're still, our old name is Worship Leader Probs over on TikTok. And then we have a private group on Facebook, our Worship Probs community group. Love to have you join us over there. It's a place for content that's different than all of our other platforms. It's leaders helping leaders. You'll get like exclusive early access to giveaways and all kinds of stuff if you're in that community group. Now, here's the deal. There are 3 questions to join the group. Here's the questions. Number 1, what's the name of the group? Okay. I think it might even say Worship Blank. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, what do you do at your church? Number 3, what's the name of your church? Okay. You might say, why do you have to ask these questions? Let me tell you why. Okay. Thanks for asking. I let a spammer in by accident once, and this person was messaging all the members of the group, and I let them in, and they didn't answer the questions. So, no mas. If you don't answer the questions, even if you are a relative, I can't let you in. You got to answer the questions. Those are three absolute layups. And over on X, you can just look for the hashtag Worship Leader Probs. Well, for a couple of years, been telling you about our amazing friends at Maven Media Productions. I've run out of adjectives, man. Allie is just the best there ever was or will be. And anything you see that looks really good, like our logos, our website, Allie built our website. And I hope you check it out. Like if your church needs a new website, or maybe you have a side hustle, wink, wink. We have a new podcast coming soon, Worship Side Hustle. Maybe you've got a side hustle and you need a website for that, or a logo, or some branding, or you need some help with social media, like somebody to kind of coach you up, or your church's social media team. Allie's the person to do it. You can find her at mavenmediaproductions.com. There's a link in our bio for Maven, and just tell them we sent you. They love the Lord, and they'll do a great job for you. And thanks to my dear friend Scott Hoke for our intro. If you are looking, maybe you're a church that does big time video or whatever, and you need voiceover work. Scott is a pro voiceover, as well as the host of the Meekum car auctions. And so you might see him on TV, but he's a dear friend, and we're super grateful that he would lend the golden pipes to our humble podcast. So thanks to Scott Hoke for our intro. Link in the bio for Scott as well. Guys, thanks so much for listening to episode 322. We love you. We're grateful for you. And until next time, deuces.